Hey everyone, welcome back to another video on this channel. I'm Arif. I completed my Masters in Mechanical Engineering in the US, and in today's video, I'll answer the most common questions that I get from my juniors and my friends about higher studies in the US. Masters or PhD? This is the question that most number of people ask me throughout the year. Or sometimes they want to go for a particular program and they just want my opinion. To be honest, there are really too many factors to consider. So let me help you get started. Firstly, the timeline. Most master's programs are for 1.5 to 2 years, while PhD take from 4 to 6 years. So it's really up to you how long you want to stay a student, or more precisely, how long you can afford to stay a student. Secondly, funding opportunities. While many people can afford a self-funded master's degree in the US, I personally don't recommend it. You can obviously manage funding for both programs, but to be honest, fundings for masters are pretty rare, especially if you are thinking about managing funding from your masters and then move to the US. Although many people are doing it, it's really very challenging. To ease this process, what many students do is they come to the US showing their personal funds, and after coming here, they manage their funding within the first semester. But this process has its own drawbacks too. First, you have to show a very good bank balance, and second, the huge deficit in your I-20 may cause problem in the visa interview. On the other hand, nobody really thinks about going for a PhD program without funding. So funding for the PhD programs are pretty common. However, they are very competitive. You can either get a funding from the department as a teaching assistant, or you can work in a professor's lab as a research assistant. In both cases, your tuition will be covered. The third factor to consider for your master's or PhD is your post-completion plans. The general catch is, if you are not an academic person like me, you should probably go for a master's and then move to the industrial jobs. On the other hand, if your post-completion plans is to stay in the academia, then you should probably go for the PhD program and maybe up for a postdoc later on too. These are the terms that students ask me a lot too. I think these are the most ambiguous terms that many students mix up. So let me clear things up in a simple way. In the US, some universities' admission committee is totally separated from the department you are applying to. So once you complete your application, the admission committee is going to decide totally independently whether you are going to get an admission or not. And if they decide that you are getting the admission, they will transfer your application to the department for further processing. In a central funding case, the admission committee and the department work together on your admission decision. As I said before, PhD programs are rarely self-funded. Nobody really wants to come for a PhD with their own funds. The department knows this very well too. So when you apply, your application will be only accepted when the department is able to fund you for your program. The funding may come either in the form of a TA-ship or as a RA-ship. Therefore, when the department decides whether you are eligible for admission and funding without the influence of a professor, that university is called a central funding university. Finally, admission in some colleges totally depend on your potential supervisor. In that case, if you have already talked to a professor and he or she is willing to let you join their lab, your admission will be granted with that professor being your supervisor. However, if you are applying for the higher studies, it's always recommended that you talk to a professor, either by email or by LinkedIn or some other method. Even in the central admission or central funding universities, if you have a recommendation from a professor in that universities or their name in the SOP, that really increases your chance to get the admission. On the other hand, sometimes even if the professor do not have his own fund, he can ask the department to support you with TA-ship. What it means is, even if it's a central funding university, a recommendation from your professor will help you get the funding in the most easy way possible. The next most common questions that I get from many students is, how important is my profile for managing a fund? Now, this is a very generalized question, so let's break it into a part. This question comes in many forms. For example, my CGPA is low. Do I really have a chance? Or I don't have any publication. Can I really make it? Or shall I go for the GRE or not? My shortest answer to this question is, think like a professor. The professor himself is a human being. So you don't really know which part of your resume will catch his eye. Therefore, you always have a chance. And truly speaking, my own undergrad CGPA was well below average. Now, what is actually meant by a profile? Your CV, publications, GRE score, IELTS or TOEFL score, SOP, LOR, all together makes up your profile. Every material in your profile has their own value. However, not a single material makes up the whole profile. While some professors focus a lot on your undergrad CGPA, some will directly move on to the publication list part, and some gets impressed by your GRE score. So, the catch here is, while you always have a chance with your current profile, you should always work on your profile to make it as outstanding as possible. I know that mailing 100 professors and not getting a single reply is heartbreaking, but all you can do is keep trying, and that's what you should do. Now, which material would I focus on if I were still applying for higher studies in nowadays? The two things are publication and programming. Now, I am from mechanical background, so your priority might change based on your major. So what you can do is talk to your seniors or friends in the US and learn from them. But I can assure you one thing, publication in top tier journal really matters, and it's the best thing that catches the eyes of the professors like nothing else. On the other hand, most research nowadays require Python or MATLAB for various reasons, either for data collection or data processing. In many ways, you can use the programming languages, and you will need to use them for sure. Therefore, if you have solid foundation in any of these programming languages and proof to show your proficiency, that also help to catch the attention of the professors. This is the end of this video. I tried to make the best use of time and get through the most number of common questions and answers. If I still missed something, I'm really sorry about that. And if you have anything else to know about, please comment below and I'll respond as soon as possible. In the next video, I'll talk about the step-by-step process and cost breakdown to come to the US for Masters or PhD. Until then, see you all.